Right, good evening, everybody. I confirm we are now live on YouTube. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this first meeting of the after the annual general meeting of this committee. I'd like to welcome our guests from BESOM, sorry, the Age Concern and Disability Initiative, who will be giving us the presentations during the evening. Can I just give a special thanks to yourself, Councillor, because Maud was very helpful for me on Friday at briefing. I had a spinal operation last Tuesday, and I didn't know whether I'd be making it tonight. But he did offer to stand in for me tonight, so thank you for all your help along the way. Take item 3 now, minutes of the last meeting. Members agree to those minutes?
Apologies, Chair.
Yes.
Yep.
Apologies for absence, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from Councillor Richard Brooks, Councillor Helen Whitcroft, Councillor Mark Gordon and Councillor Josephine Hawkins. Councillor Valerie White is substitute for Councillor Josephine Hawkins and Councillor Christian Wren is substitute for Councillor Helen Whitcroft.
Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest?
Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Indeed.
Lovely to see you back this evening, Vivian, and looking so fit. So, yes, I have a declaration of interest. I noticed in the report on 2 of the 3 presenters today the mention of Surrey Heath Prepared, and as a founding member of that, it's a non-pecuniary interest. As a founding member of Surrey Heath Prepared, for better, just mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane. Hi, thank you. I am a trustee on Surrey Heath Age Concern and also was on Surrey Heath Prepared as well. Thank you. David.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I too am a trustee on Surrey Heath Age Concern.
Thank you. Very much. Now go to item 5. This will be a presentation from Andy, please. Thank you. And I'm very delighted to have Gail and Greg with us tonight to represent BESOM. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to say that I'm here on behalf of Mary Rigby, who would love to have been here as chair, but she's unfortunately not too well at the moment, so she sends her apologies. Just to explain who I am, I'm actually a time giver with BESOM. My time with them started as part of SHP, where I looked after the food bank at High Cross Church, got involved with a few in the food distribution out to the wards, but I'll explain a little bit more of that during the update. I'd also like to thank Gail for joining me, who is a long-term trustee of BESOM, and I'm sure will answer some of the more difficult questions that I may not have the answers to. So if we just move to the next slide. Great. So just really a little bit of context, a little bit of background. BESOM is a Christian-based charity set up in 1987, and its aim is to provide a bridge for those that wish to give time or money from the church community to the local community, and that has been a very well-established group in Canby for quite some time. Focus is on all members of the community and all age groups in any way. Anybody that is in need, BESOM will be there, and we'll explain a little bit more a bit later. So it isn't just a food bank, they also provide a number of packs, starter packs for new mums, new families, and also kitchen packs where needed. So moving into accommodations such as Roberts Lodge and so on. So they work very closely with the family team at the council. Overall, the charitable objective is to relieve the relief of poverty and financial hardship in Camberley and the surrounding area. So, sorry, Heath, but again, we'll just cover that for a little later. If I can just do.
But that's my fault, Greg. Try now.
Okay. Okay, so brief history. As I say, Beeson was founded in 1987, but in Camberley, it was originally started in 2009, so it's around about 12 years now. There are around 22 groups of Beeson organisations, most of which are in the southeast. And the next is in Woking, but they don't actually provide food. They provide a number of the other services within Beeson, and the Woking Food Bank provides food to the 3 wards within Surrey Heath. So Bisley, West End and Shopham, that Beeson does not serve. Beeson was registered as a CIO in February 2015, has 6 trustees, and it moved to Bridge Road. You may be aware of the warehouse on Bridge Road in 2013, and that has been very well established now. And during the period that SHB was looking after the warehouse, it was all refurbished. And, that was very beneficial to the team and reorganised really to accommodate managing of a one-way system for the food collection. So, I think one of the very important messages that I'd like to get over, and I'm sure many of you are aware, is that Beeson is not a traditional, or what might be seen as a traditional food bank. It isn't a location that individuals or members of the public can come to seek food. It is all managed through a referral system, and there are a number of different referrals, the most common of which is Citizens Advice, but again, Frontline, the council, and a number of local schools and churches are all able to refer individuals to Beeson for an initial period of 4 weeks of food deliveries, 1 per week. And that can be for individuals and anything up to very large families as well. The reason for that is really that the aim is to support the family or the individuals whilst they're working with those referrers to address any additional concerns, challenges that they might have with regard to debt management, housing issues, benefit issues, so that it gives them the time to get themselves into a position where they're better able to provide the food and necessities that they need. That process can be repeated. So at the end of a 4-week delivery cycle, the clients will be referred back to their referrer, and the referrer will then do a further review. If there is a feeling that there is still a need for further parcels, then they will be continued, and some have continued for quite some weeks. So never refuse, but always work through referral to carry on. In addition to that, emergency parcels can be provided. So a councillor or a church leader or the council team and Citizens Advice can always call Beeson, and they will ensure that an emergency parcel is provided in very urgent circumstances. And on occasions, those emergency packs are available in the council offices or in Citizens Advice offices, so they can be provided to those that might be in need. So last year was a little different, so I think many of you will be aware, and quite clearly, as the vast majority of the Beeson team are of an age that they were basically asked to shield throughout the whole of the pandemic, they clearly were not able to provide the the services that they would like to have done. However, they were very generous in providing all of the food stock that existed at Beeson to Surrey Heath Prepared. It was all transferred to a little bit of jiggery pokery beforehand, but essentially SHP took over the food banks at Highcross Church. It also consolidated that with the council food deliveries that were ongoing at that time, and obviously their own SHP. So everything was done through that single food warehouse, distributed via council drivers out to council customers or to Beeson customers, and then of course through the whole SHP network through each of the wards on a daily basis. And as I say, it was an amazing organisation to be part of. That went on for around about 4 months, and in mid-July, that was the first point at which many of the trustees and time givers for Beeson were able to come out in public again. They were very keen to start operations. So we developed a transition plan, moving everything from Highcross Church over to Bridge Street, and we put in place a 6-week transition plan, and that involved a number of the Beeson team coming into Highcross Church and learning really through shadowing SHP volunteers in terms of doing how they were now having to do the food consolidation packs, given all of the COVID restrictions and so on. And then when the operation moved to Bridge Street mid-July, a number of the SHP volunteers, I'm pleased to say, offered to continue to support them, and indeed 3 or 4 of them are still ongoing at the present time. My role was really to oversee that and manage that and work with Mary to ensure that everything was in place. Firstly at the site of Bridge Street, and then I had a discussion with Jane about kind of keeping a watching brief, because obviously the concern and the nervousness that was around was what happens if we suddenly go into another lockdown? Will Beeson be able to cope with that? Will we need to we certainly did not want to restart an SHP or another operation. It had to succeed where it was. So we had a contingency plan that allowed for a second shift that could double the volume that Beeson could cope with. As it happens, though, the team did magnificently well, and even when the third lockdown hit in December, they continued to manage themselves. Mary had created individual bubbles on each of the days, so again they were managing and making sure that they were able to support, and they carried on right the way through to now. So I'm certainly very proud of them, and I think they did an amazing job. You'll see some of the volume shortly. So it's a little small, but just really headlines. So this gives you a month-by-month summary of deliveries, how many adults were served, how many children, and therefore the overall household. Headlines are that you can see that it coming out of SHP, they were relatively low. The July figures are only for 2 weeks. August was quite significant, and then it tailed off until November, when obviously the third lockdown began. And then you can see as of March 21, the numbers came down again, and they are at a more stable level at the present time. And those figures to continue to be recorded each month. In terms of Beeson again, as I mentioned earlier, it isn't just food provision. They do a wonderful job supporting families locally with kitchen starter packs, new mum packs, bedding towels, small electrical items. And this has come into its own just recently, where Beeson has been supporting the council with the social housing units that have been put together at Connaught Court. So they do have a much wider brief, and they are also involved in supporting refugees' families when needed. And over Christmas, from an average of normally 60 or 80, they did 149 Christmas hampers over and above the delivery of the food hampers that were delivered that month. Finances, just really a few headlines. Up until lockdown, really, Beeson was funded primarily through the local churches, either through church contributions from income and very much from individual donations from the congregation and a number of other organisations, Friendly Funeral Alliance being one that has previously donated. Of course, in lockdown, the income came to a steaming stop, and so it's been very much appreciated that SHBC were able to make a couple of grants, one of which was obviously through the DEFRA, apologies for the armies, and that really has ensured that we can sustain Beeson as an organisation for the coming months and years until really the church income gets back to reasonable levels. But I would also say that there has been a huge amount of significant threefold increase in individual donations and corporate donations during the last financial year. That has, of course, tailed off now. So looking forward, I think Beeson is here for the long term and will certainly be here for the next 10, 15 years. I think one of the challenges that it's recognised through SHB in these last 3 months is that it is in need of some new blood. It has got some new younger people that have joined over this period. But again, in terms of the trustees, I know that a number of them are looking over their shoulders. So they'll be working with the churches to look at how do we make sure that that sustainability is there, and we bring new people in to take it forward. Coming out of Sorry You've Prepared, one thing that Beeson hadn't done previously was provide fresh produce as part of their packs, but we set up as part of Beeson deliveries through the Emmett's fruit and veg stalls. They now continue and support Beeson with deliveries every week. And also have a relationship now with Hattos that provide fresh meat that is distributed also. So very positive. And I think the other key point is that we know that coming out of the pandemic, a number of other smaller food stalls, other food banks have emerged. And I think it's really important going forward that we look at how we ensure that those work collaboratively. And that is already happening, but again, I can see that being something positive for the future, as we know the after effects is going to go on for some months yet to come. So we will be busy. So thank you for your time, and any questions?
Thank you. Great session. An excellent presentation. Very, very in depth. And to through the churches together, get all the good work that you do. I'm very sorry that Mary couldn't be with us today. She has another major and she's communicated. So would you please send her my card so you get. I'll take questions from the floor.
Thank you. It's good to see you back and well as chairman. One question for me is about August and the height that you had in food bank. Is that just because Sorry You've Prepared had come to an end and so the workload for you had to increase, or was it because it was a school break?
I think what that was about was that it was still following on. Sorry You've Prepared operated slightly differently to Beeson. It was basically if somebody called and needed food, they got food. There was no process for validating that. It was, so if you like, expectations had been set, and I think it took 2 or 3 months to get back into normal process, which was things to go back into referrals. So I think it was also schools were off as well, so potentially that may well be a factor at the time.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that presentation. And also on behalf of the residents I represent, thank you for everything that you and Beeson and the volunteers do in our community. We saw that at the height Historic Heath Prepared. You were right at the coalface, you and your volunteers, and it was greatly appreciated, and I know it made a huge difference to the lives of a lot of people in our borough, so thank you. I read your presentation with interest, in particular the stuff around the electrical items and helping people, young families and so on. Are they second-hand items, or is this stuff that you purchase?
No, absolutely not. They're brand new. Beeson will either source those through donations that people have given. They're not huge, you know, they're not fridges and freezers. They're small kitchen items, toasters, and microwaves. Because obviously with a microwave that can do a lot of other items.
Okay.
So no, they're all new. It is something that is really at the root of the ethos, is to try and help and improve individuals' self-esteem. So it really is about getting them to a point where they feel.
Absolutely. Okay. And how can we help you as a councillor? I realise that you get a grant from this council, but is there anything else that we can do? I mean, we have all the resources of our marketing communications team that perhaps you mentioned that you're struggling with volunteers and you need to inject some of your life into that. And I think all charitable organisations probably have that problem locally. Fundraising, excuse me, fundraising too, and that type of thing. Please let us know if there's anything we can do. Don't be afraid to ask. And there's a lot of goodwill in this council across all political groups, and I'm sure that there's something that we can do. So do let us know. And if there's anything in particular right now that you can think of, perhaps you can tell the committee.
No, Chris, but what I will say is that the council have been absolutely fantastic over the last year. In addition, obviously, to the financial support, which has been crucial in that period, Jane has been superb in supporting, working with us and providing the council drivers. So whilst they were unable to do their roles during the pandemic, they helped and did a lot of deliveries, both during SHP, but also they've carried on really until the last month or so, making deliveries to clients. So that's been really appreciated, but that's really appreciate that. And we will continue to work with Jane and the council as a whole.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to kind of ask about the support that you can give to kind of new food banks that are kind of emerging. I know that you mentioned it in your presentation, which is good. And I'm just kind of wondering if you can give a bit more detail on how Beeson as an organisation with its experience is helping the new food banks and the food stalls kind of that are emerging. Just wondering if you can give a bit more information on that.
Yes, I can't say too much for the wider Beeson organisation. I don't know how much, but Gail may be able to say how much we have in there. But I think there's been a lot of communication. I've looked at the website that the Bisley and West End Food Bank have started, and they're very much taking on the similar role in terms of their approach through referrals. We know that there's already been contact between them and also the food stores, so Mary and the team are there certainly to help. I think it's really important that we try and make sure there's that communication and collaboration to ensure that really people don't slip down between the cracks of the two organisations. So it's probably communication mostly, but Mary and Grace and the team are very happy to meet with anybody from other groups looking to start up.
Councillor Garrett. Advising.
Councillor Garrett?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I apologise for arriving a little bit late. I was in another meeting, so I missed the very beginning of your presentation, Greg. But thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for everything you do. I think Councillor Deach actually picked up on one of my points, which was obviously I note from your presentation that you're finding it difficult to get volunteers. I don't know if that's volunteers coming from the church, volunteers that we can help with via the voluntary services within the council. But so is there anything we can do to try and help you to bring more volunteers involved in the BSOM so the next generation are able to help moving forward? I'm the new portfolio holder on this area, so I'm still catching up and getting up to speed. But obviously, if there is anything we as the council can do, please let us know.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Sean. Actually, volunteers probably slightly misleading. In terms of volunteers, there is a good number of volunteers, and we have a very good link into VSNS, and obviously a number of volunteers that have been picked up through the whole SHP are moving through. What I think the trustees are keen for is to look at who are the next generation of trustees to carry it forward. With all due respect to all of them, they are of a certain age, and they want to know that this is going to carry on forward. So in terms of individual time givers, packing bags, delivering, there are sufficient. Can always do with more, but it's really looking at who's going to take this forward as trustees as well.
Okay. So maybe that's something we can work with you to try and promote the fact that you want obviously what you do and help you with.
Yes, obviously it needs to ideally be through the church network. Cool.
And Commissioner, thank you so much for coming to such a brilliant presentation. The amazing work, not only in this COVID period, but day in, day out, that we provide the service. It's empowering. If you would, please, and to all your volunteers. I mean, it's a great team that you've do this off there. So members, I'd like to turn to the recommendation on page 10 now. The committee is asking to consider the presentation in relation to Surrey and any future steps which members would wish to recommend to the executive and or the council. Members, do you have any recommendations? None. That's one. Thank you. Thank you again for your attendance here tonight. Members, I'd like to turn to agenda item 6, which is a presentation from Surrey Age Concern. And I'm delighted to welcome Tracy and to McCafferty to this meeting to give us a presentation. Very good again that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Tracy, Charity Manager for Surrey Age Concern, and this is Wayne, our chairperson. The charity has been established since 1977. We're a small charity supporting the independent, living by befriending isolated people in their homes and social events for those more able. Next slide, please. Andrew is our befriending coordinator who works tirelessly in carefully matching our referred only elderly people with appropriate befrienders. The process involves visiting the elderly person and completing an assessment form and finding out likes and dislikes, then going back to our DBS check volunteers with similar interests. A meeting is arranged with them both with a SHAC representative in attendance. After the meeting, they are both called to see if they're happy. If so, the befriend visits them on a regular weekly basis. A monthly visiting form is completed by the befriender and any concerns brought to SHAC's attention and action. The waiting list at the moment is manageable, however, we expect more referrals as COVID ends. Next slide, please. We support nearly 200 people with 2 part-time members of staff. Most of our volunteers are elderly and have understandably found the time very difficult. Our befriendees come from 15 different wards of Surrey Heath, so we cover a wide area. The next slide, please. We telephone our befrienders, volunteers and other elderly people we support on a weekly basis, trying to reassure them This time it's much more difficult and depressing for them. The weather was bad. Christmas in particular was exceedingly difficult. They missed family and friends. And 27% of the friendees that we phoned said they missed the kind of wonderful contact they had from SHP and SHBC. We wanted to know, let them know we cared, and arranged a Christmas box for the elderly people we support. This was a mammoth project. Tesco's, Johnson's, Wax, Pembroke House supplied us with contributions to make this possible. We packed, wrapped, and delivered the Christmas boxes to over 100 elderly people. Some of the elderly were reduced to really grateful tears. It was lovely to see, actually. The phone line helped as they knew they could ring any time, 7 days a week, if they needed a friendly voice. We continued to call the SHP referrals as most did not qualify for our service, but we felt that we needed to carry on supporting them. And those that did qualify were matched with a befriender. Next slide, please. The mobility issues were worsened and more depression issues. It made it more difficult for Andrew and myself to cheer them up. They were worried about illnesses, not being able to see the doctors, scam calls, and concerned about their families. We'd referred quite a few people to CAB for help, social services and welfare, contacting GPs where necessary, checking and relaying information regarding COVID injections, etc. And CHAP attending the COVID champions. We sadly lost too many of our elderly people, mostly due to natural causes, some due to COVID. We spent a long time listening and supporting the families of the deceased. Next slide, please. Let's moving forward. The elderly people's well-being had deteriorated, both from mobility and confidence now. They were scared, they felt physically unable to go out, and they need encouragement and long-term support. Therefore, we need to strike up a happy medium where we can be supportive but not all encompassing as we worry that their house might become a prison to them. Next slide, please. We are also we're also concerned about our volunteer pool being drying up because we haven't got enough volunteers going forward, and our disability itself. Initial steps to face-to-face befriending. Both the volunteer befriender and the befriendee have received a call to establish their vaccination status. Wellbeing risk assessments have been completed. Some parties did not wish to return to face-to-face befriending at that stage. These will continue telephone befriending. All parties returning to face-to-face befriending have been advised to sit at least 2 meters apart in a well-ventilated room. No physical contact and to sanitize their hands before, during and after their visit. PPE has been distributed to those who have made the request. As lateral flow tests are readily available, befriendees have been encouraged but not instructed to consider taking a test before visiting. Next slide, please. We've had a difficult year, as all hospitality has. We've incurred large expense in getting perspex sprayers, PPE, etc. And we had to adapt our working so the volunteers could work safely. We opened in July and closed early in November 2020. Thankfully, we were able to put our cafe manager in furlough, otherwise we found it very difficult. We appreciate the council letting us utilise the Rainbow Cafe, where the elderly people can come in for a chat and mix with their peers in a friendly, affordable place. We're looking forward to opening the Rainbow Cafe in the town and have a welcoming place once restrictions have been relaxed, hopefully on the 21st of June. Due to the size of the cafe, it's not been viable to open before then. We look at holding tea and memories as soon as we feel safe to do so, as this used to be extremely popular. As we're limited with space, we've got to be considerate of that. Can I have the next slide, please? During COVID, it highlighted the need to encourage our elderly people to become more IT confident. We are running a basic IT classes on a small scale to help them stay contacted. We've had got volunteer and funding in place. We've established contacts to help them get reasonably priced internet in their homes if they wish to proceed after courses like a try before you buy. We're concentrating on further training our volunteers, and we'll have regular training sessions in the cafe and more social small gatherings for volunteers so they can make additional friendships as well. Next slide, please. Positives of COVID. It might seem strange to say there's positives to COVID, We were successful in grant applications thanks to Surrey Heath Council, SHP, Community Foundation of Surrey, the Wakeman Trust and Open Oakwood. They all who have awarded us an achievement grant. We've built up relationships with our elderly people, finding time to learn about their interesting lives they've led. We've gained some befrienders through the telephone befrienders through the pandemic. We learned and have adapted the best way to support our elderly community. Referrals from SHP, which SHAC continue to support, some have now got befrienders. Next slide, please. The negatives. Events had to be cancelled, including the Surrey Show, a volunteer drive, all tea and memories and chatter, a joint celebration with Camberley Care, BSNS, which was funded by the lottery. We have had more of our designated hours. We've had to, as we felt the need to support the elderly people. We found it both difficult to switch off and worrying about individuals. And due to this continued support, they now rely on us. A lot more people need help since COVID. Next slide, please. COVID has really left its mark. We've personally seen the deterioration of the elderly people we support, especially in those that were previously confident going out. They now lack confidence, need encouragement to venture out. I've been trying to assure them that Camberley Town is now more accessible with new pathways and benches, hopefully with the help of our wonderful befrienders. The more able befriendees will be able to get out the confidence to venture again. One suggestion I thought of, I don't know whether it's going to be dismissed, is to provide small shopping trolleys they can lean on for 60 plus at access points in the high street, drop-off points and opposite the Rainbow Cafe. I've asked a few of the people we support and they said that would be really useful and would encourage them to go out. The trolleys could be brought in at 4 PM to avoid vandalism. A lot of the elderly people, especially the ladies, won't bring a shopping trolley. Or won't device because they fill in taxis, they can't bring them. So it's just a suggestion like thought of. Can I have the next slide, please? Community hub. We're in discussions with HSBC about having a hub with other appropriate partners in Camberley Town, which is accessible for all our elderly, encouraging them to venture out and get the support they need. I'm sure you're all aware this is Volunteer Week, and to celebrate, we are providing delivery 26 of our befriendies who go above and beyond to a tea experience with cake and sandwiches paid for them with the lottery grant. We're delivering them on Thursday the 3rd. We really appreciate our volunteers. Without them, SHAC would cease to exist. We're also doing a sponsored walk on the World side on Sunday the 26th of September if anyone wants to attend or promote. We appreciate it. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Thank you again for such a brilliant presentation and everything. It's good to see my friend here as well tonight. Thank you for coming, Glenn. And I'll take questions from members now. Paul.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. I've referred quite a lot of residents that I represent to Surrey Heath Age Concern over the years, in particular in recent years. And I have to say, I've seen Surrey Heath Age Concern attend this committee. Gosh, I've been a councillor since 2011. So every single year since I've been a councillor, you guys have attended here. And I have to say, massive improvement in the organisation since I first saw you guys. A couple of things, if I may. It seems that befriending is now a major part of your activities.
It is a major part.
Yeah, and I can see why, actually. I mean, particularly over the lockdowns, social isolation has increased. It was there before. It's probably now even more so. But I'm interested to see, because I know that Voluntary Support North Surrey also provide a befriending service. Do you find, because you said about the volunteer issue, which is the same for everybody, do you find that you're competing with the likes of Surrey Heath, Voluntary Support North Surrey for volunteers? That's my first question. Second question is, do you have more capacity for befriending? I'm always conscious because I like I say, I do refer people to voluntary support North Surrey and to you guys for befriending. I have did one only a couple of weeks ago. Do you have the capacity? Because I'm always conscious of that. Perhaps you could answer those two questions, and I've just got one other thing I'd like to come back on, if I may, Chair.
Right, the first question was, sorry.
The first question was, are you competing with voluntary support North Surrey for volunteers in the befriending space?
They normally refer volunteers to us. We could always do with more. And their criteria for their befriending service is different to ours. There's this Time to Talk, which is for younger people as well as older people. And with mental health issues, they'll accept.
Right.
We don't accept people with mental health issues because our volunteers aren't trained for it, and we feel it's not fair to them. Also, we don't, if over lockdown, it's been taking people on that we shouldn't do as a befriending service. But we don't deal with couples. I have been dealing with them because some sorry, paid referrals were couples, and I've continued with them and continue supporting them until COVID ends, and then we'll gracefully ease out or refer them to other agencies. But those are the criteria we have, so that limits the people that we can have.
Okay, thank you. Actually, that answers on the voluntary support North Surrey point, answers that perfectly, so thank you very much for that. Finally, on fundraising, and I suppose fundraising is very difficult for all voluntary organisations. It's always difficult, particularly so now because your activities are seriously reduced on what you're able to do. But it seems to me though that I think that one area where you might be able to help your fundraising efforts is by raising awareness in the community of what it is that you guys do. You provide an incredible service, and I think that that's one area where, if I may say so, in the nicest possible way, you need to up your game.
No, that's one of the things I've put myself in a social media training course, because that's what I'll quite happily admit I'm not up to speed on that. And I've also put our IT person on that as well. We've got a fundraising team now as well, which is doing wonderful things. So, and we've got the sponsor walk, big sponsor walk, which is going to be on the 26th of September, which I also, not so much looking at for raising loads of money, but raising our profile, which I really feel we need to know that people, because when I help in the cafe when we've been short of volunteers, I always point out to customers what we are and what we do, and we also, when it's getting new menus for the cafe as well, to actually say what we are, because when people come in, we lost all the 50 plus on the outside because it stops the 50 plus coming in, to be honest. I'm 50 plus and I wouldn't have gone into a cafe blazing 50 plus on the windows. So we want it to be open to everyone, and we feel by doing that then we can raise our profile with people that they can say, oh, I didn't know it supported this, I didn't know it did this. So it's going to be a slow process, but we're trying to get that, and we'd welcome any support we could from anyone.
Well, you've always got that from me, and I'm sure you would have that from anyone else here in the room. One last thing, you may not be aware that councillors have a fund, £1,000 each actually, that they can spend.
I did try actually. I just sent it at the end to a few of the councillors.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't remember getting that, but there's 35 councillors here. They all gave 100 quid each. That's £3.5 grand. So get in touch. Okay.
I did like getting my grant opportunities. I must admit, I don't miss out on an awful lot.
Thank you.
It is interesting that Paul has just said that on when Reason was doing the presentation. I made a note, councillor allowances. Any more questions? Please.
Can I just point you in the direction on the website, so it's the ward councillor rather than easy to look at. It's actually on our Surrey Heath website.
I'm sure Gwen will be able to point you.
Yeah,
she knows somebody.
I think she will, but just for anyone else here as well, just so you know.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Send me an email and I'll send you 100%. I just want to add, it seems like it's been quite an emotional, draining year. Yeah. That's the kind of, I mean, those phone calls must be really tough, I imagine.
Some of them especially, I've had people saying they're going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
I've had all different things. But to be honest, we found distraction techniques, to be honest. Talk about their past and things that they felt comfortable with. And knowing that they could ring at any time. I mean, sometimes it wasn't convenient, I'm not going to lie, when you got a phone call, but it was only 5 minutes. So you could take 5 minutes out for somebody. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. You know, I think that's the one element of that about lockdown, especially the last year, for elderly that have had to lock away, is it's been like a prison, and I think it's been rough. So the support that you've given is outstanding, and it goes a long way. And I don't really have anything to comment. I do agree with the points that Councillor Teachers raised, and I think those are good points. But I just think it would, as a show of appreciation, just a thank you, because I know it goes a long way. So.
Thank you. And thank you. So apologies if I rattled through it. I was very nervous.
No, that's fine.
That's perfect.
You did very well.
Thank God, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is actually a question for officers. I'm just wondering, in terms of the grants that they concern the sea, are those secure in the long term? I'm just pretty sure I think I agree they are. I'm just wondering, so they're fully, so they know what the money they're going to get, which they can kind of baseline. I'm just wondering if you can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, and Jane can always come fill in with the detail, because she's very good with the detail, I have to admit. We've got to do a review, basically, of all of our grants, and that's due to come to the executive in November. But the revenue grants are there at the moment. Nothing has changed at this point in time. And as I say, we have quite a number of different grants that are available, and depending on, obviously, the different charity, they can apply for different things, because they all mean different things to you. But Jane, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
All I was going to say is that the zoning based concern have received grants for a number of years. I think with the service that they're providing, I don't think that perhaps members will not to support them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not meant as a criticism, because I also support age concern, but I would be interested to see or hear what sort of take up they have from the villages, because being a village councillor, it seems to be very town based, and I just wondered what support or what approaches they've had, if any, from the villages.
We've got, sorry, I feel rude talking
That's
to you
all right,
back.
quite right.
We are operating 15 wards at the moment, as I said. The numbers in Camberley Town, probably more, I'm not going to lie about that, but we have promoted our services within all the libraries and magazines, and I'm happy to share with you however many befriendees we've got in each ward. If you want me to send it to me, I haven't got that on me at the moment, but I'm happy to write that.
That would be most helpful.
And also, I'm happy if you promote our service within your areas as well.
Well, yes, we certainly will, but I just think sometimes you've got a concentration of people, and this is often brought home when the charities in the village apply for grants. They're told we haven't got enough members, and that is very off-putting.
No, I mean, a lot of the volunteers won't travel too much. So obviously, if we've got a volunteer within the one of these smaller boroughs, villages, and we've got a befriendee, we're waiting. There's obviously they're going to be matched up. So so it works both ways. If we can get people more volunteers from all the wards, and more, we're happy to support more friendlies as necessary.
Absolutely, thank you.
Morgan.
Just following on that question, do you have a lot of requests or referrals for different friendly service from Do you have elderly people asking for help?
Everyone that's we get referred, I wouldn't know exactly because I haven't. Anyone who has asked to be have a referral, we go through all the criteria, make sure they fit, and they're available to us as simple as that. But we make Andrew takes a lot more time than I believe previously that the befriended coordinator did. They're more long-term befriended because it's she makes sure they've got the same interests. She makes sure that they're happy to go and see this person. They've got something in common. It's a bit like blind date, to be honest, really. But it works. Because there's nothing worse than putting a match together that isn't right, and then it's upsetting the elderly person because they feel rejected.
If I could just make a couple of comments on what you've been saying and your report. From 2 years back, we had a report saying that Surrey had the second highest rate of over 80s coming on in the future. So you can see how all these services that we're talking about here tonight are going to be on the increase and the new need for them. And I also noticed that in your report about the increase in one-person households of 85 years plus. That is quite something. And relating to that, your figures of the low technology population, either by mobile telephones or internet connections. It's something I'm feeling with doctor surgeries, hospitals that have just had an operation. Everything now is done by iPhone and mobile phone. I've been having to put questionnaires in daily, and I just think of these people in their 80s, particularly if they're on their own in this COVID situation, how on earth they've been able to manage to do all of this. In fact, it's something that I am taking up with the authorities because it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse, and we have to do it some way of doing it. I mean, some of the computer systems, I've had instances with this, doctor surgeries, you go round and round the system, you know, and I think I'm a reasonably intelligent person, so goodness knows what. And in the end, it's so dire, you give up. So it's something that we're working on.
Yeah, and that's
the population.
That's why we're doing these small classes in the cafe, just for I'd say for the younger elderly. So at least we can help. It's only going to be probably 5 or 6 at a time. Yeah. So, but it's baby steps. At least then, if those 5 or 6 go for after a few weeks to manage on their own with a few, just the basic information, yes, then we can have another lot. I don't know how it's going to work, but hopefully it'll improve.
It will help.
It'll help.
Thank you very, very much for giving us the presentation and being here today. Thank you very much, everyone. We have a recommendation, members. Sorry. Emma Jane.
Can I just say also the lady recommended about like mobility, like walking around the town? Yes. Can we actually have a look to see if we could actually have something like that?
Something we can recommend.
Because obviously we've got the new bike racks where they can like tuck their bikes.
Yes.
So yeah, can we not just have a look?
There's a lot of recommendations coming up that we can add something to. Yes, yes,
Thank you for giving me more time. Just wondering, just so I had an idea in terms of, would it be possible for the council to almost kind of provide a set of cheap mobile phones for Surrey Youth Aid Concern to kind of be able to loan to some of their clients, so they can, if they don't have a mobile phone, it might be, I don't know if that's possible. Could that be something that we could potentially look at? Is that something? And I'm realising we're not going to make that decision tonight. I'm just wondering if I could just raise that with officers to see if there's scope for that.
Please. I can definitely have a look into it for you and see what we can do, and I'll report back to the committee.
Yes. Members, I'd like to refer to a recommendation, and the committee is asked to consider the presentation in relation to Surrey Heath and any future steps which members would wish to recommend to the Executive and the Council. Bearing in mind two suggestions that we've just had, I suggest that action be looked at.
Just to confirm, Chair. So obviously working with Surrey Heath Age Concern, just having a little investigating the idea that Councillor Morgan Rice has had about telephone. So we're looking into that item and report back. And we'd also, as Councillor Emma Jane Garth has suggested, look into the trolley system, and again, just look at seeing how that could work. And again, we'll work with you to see what we can do. But again, it will be an investigation to start with, and then we'll report that back to the committee.
Members are in agreement with action that we take. That's unanimous. Thank you. Very good suggestions. Thank you again, Tracy, and speaking to us tonight in presentations. It's been really interesting, and I'm sure we've learned even more about Surrey Age Concern, and we look to continue working with you and all the work you do. Thank you. Members, I'd like to turn to agenda item 7 now. This is a presentation of Disability Initiative, and welcome to Lucy Brown, who's the Chief Executive of that organisation. Great, can you pass it now? Thank you, Lucy.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me along tonight and tell you how Disability Initiative adapted and responded to the impact of the pandemic and lockdown, words we never thought we'd use in our vocabulary on a daily basis 2 years ago. So DI, as we know, has been a part of the very fabric of Surrey Heath for almost half a century. The charity was established to support people who had become physically disabled or who had an acquired brain injury. People who've been diagnosed with deteriorating conditions such as motor neurone, Huntington's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, or people who've had a stroke or perhaps a road traffic accident. Sometimes even people end up disabled after falling off a ladder. DI has supported many hundreds, in fact thousands of people over the last half a century, and also along with their families, giving them the support they need. So in 1999, thanks to a lottery grant, some fundraising, and Surrey Heath Borough Council, DI was able to build this fabulous building that's the top left that you can see there. It's a multi-purpose building, fully accessible, and it's vast. It's like the TARDIS. For those of you who haven't seen it, please do, when we can, come and have a visit. But Paul will tell you, it's massive, isn't it? Which was to our advantage, obviously, during the pandemic. Each week, we were supporting around 75 adults of mostly working age, along with their carers and families, primarily from Surrey Heath. What we were doing was helping people to remain as independent as possible for as long as possible. Quite often people have been discharged from hospital and end up with very little, and they can end up coming to us usually in some sort of crisis. Just going to make sure the wind doesn't blow my notes away. This is our mission, as you'll see. It's about offering opportunities and support and enabling people to really achieve or release and achieve their potential and work towards achieving their goals. I've gone through that. Although primarily, as I said, the majority of our clients come from Surrey Heath, we do take people from across Surrey, from North East Hampshire. We do have a service in Hampshire as well. And we also have people from the Berkshire Unitaries that attend, and sometimes the London boroughs. On March the 2nd, 2020, DI's trustee met for a board meeting. The discussion, as you can imagine, was dominated by the information that was actually emerging from the World Health Organization at the time, and also the possible implications of a worldwide pandemic. It was unthinkable. DI's governance, I have to say, is truly exceptional, with all the trustees being experts in their field. For example, our chairman was formerly the Director of Commissioning and Support Strategy and Market Development for the NHS Commissioning Board. Our Vice Chair was former CEO of Frimley NHS Trust and is currently a member of the NHS Health Improvement Board. Another trustee is Head of Sustainable Risk at Zurich Global. The reason I tell you this is because they know their stuff. That evening, we deliberated what was happening around the world and wondered what we could do about it. At that stage, they authorised me to do whatever was necessary to keep our clients and our staff safe and well. DI, fortunately, had all its strategic and risk and operational risk policies in place. All the team are trained and qualified to an incredibly high level, and we knew that our client group would be probably the most vulnerable, as all had underlying conditions. And in fact, we now know that over 80% of people who died from COVID worldwide were disabled. So by Tuesday, the 17th of March 2020, DI had pivoted its services. I'd informed all stakeholders, government departments, hospitals, councils, supermarkets, in fact, just about everyone, to ensure that they knew what we were doing, and we could also enhance our collaborations at that time. And in fact, the key workers, DI's key workers, were recognised as key workers and getting key worker status from the get-go, which was amazing because they could go into supermarkets and go into chemists and so on and so forth. We work closely with every single one of our clients to identify what their needs might be, what support systems they already had in place, and any potential requirements for and if the country went into lockdown. It did. On March the 24th, 2020, the day none of us will ever forget. But DI was fully prepared, and we'd implemented its strategy the previous week. The key workers flexed their working patterns. We utilised technology. It's really interesting to hear about all the issues around technology because that's exactly what some of our clients faced as well. It's a big challenge. They applied all their training, including the Midas training to drive the Dial-A-Ride buses, which is very exciting. We already were very, very well equipped with PPE, sanitising equipment and so on, because that's the way we work anyway. So we're versed in all the health and safety aspects of that. They applied their expertise, they donned full PPE, making sure every client got the support they needed. We were shopping, we were collecting medication, we were delivering equipment, providing home-cooked meals. We were Zooming, Facebooking, Skyping, phoning, visiting, providing activities, liaising with agencies, organisations, hospitals, local authorities, government departments, stepping in for other agencies. And if it needed doing, the DI team did it. As you can see here, there were packs and food and Skyping. You can see a couple of the lads there taking equipment to people's homes and running out with hot food. Fortunately, like I say, the team were also trained in basic food hygiene, which was handy. But what we were witnessing firsthand was the catastrophic impact that lockdown was having on the disabled community. So rehabilitations sessions had been cancelled, domiciliary services had been reduced, community services had been very scant, almost skeleton if they hadn't closed. and reliance on family members had substantially increased, putting families under a lot of pressure. People's health and well-being was deteriorating, including their functional mobility. There was poor nutrition, increased isolation and anxiety, and a huge loss of confidence. And that wasn't just our client group, that was everybody. Many disabled people weren't equipped with digital platforms, so became even more disconnected from the outside world. Now, I know I am banging on about DI, but it was a beacon at that stage in time. We knew we were the only service at that stage that was fully operating. We used the DI's COVID secure specialist expertise, and we were wholly person-centred in our approach to everything that we did. But none of this actually would have been able to happen without the grant we had from Surrey Heath Borough Council at the very beginning. Within the first month, we pivoted our services. The team were going out for mobile phone bills, petrol, travel, all sorts of things that increased to such an extent, and food. And Surrey Heath Borough Council awarded us £7,200, and that money enabled us to continue to support every single person and their families for a good few weeks until other things kicked in and we knew what was happening. We didn't know if we were going to get funded. All our fundraising had disappeared. Grants were really difficult. Competition was difficult, but also demand was so high. And we had other organisations asking us to help them as well. So we also knew we needed to have people coming in. And we were able, because of the size of our building, to have people safely in, to keep them mobile, to prevent deterioration, to prevent hospitalisation. But we were also working with people who were discharged from the hospital. And we worked out a pathway with their intensive care teams, so that rather than people being discharged and then falling off the edge, we were able to work with them for a short period of time just to maintain their independence or stop deterioration. So, which was an incredibly rewarding situation as well. We wouldn't have been able to do that, as I say, genuinely. Surrey Heath giving us that initial funding really gave us the platform, the stepping stone to thrust forward. So we were incredibly fortunate also with more, there's the team. That's not all of them, obviously, but there they are. They've subsequently been wearing scrubs. We had to buy scrubs and all sorts of things, but you can see the camaraderie and the dedication and devotion. We had not one single day off sick at all through the whole of the pandemic. Everybody worked their socks off, day in, day out, changing the way they worked. Phenomenal. We're also really lucky with the partners and supporters that we had, and they made a fundamental difference to what we were able to do. Sandhurst Academy gave us food containers. We had some money from the the Community Foundation for Surrey, and the Community Fund, the DCMS as well. Tommy and Spoke School gave us visors and all sorts of things. The Chinese Association gave us more masks at that stage in time. Waitrose gave us bits and pieces. High Speed gave us the best sanitizer I've ever seen in my life. I think it fell off the back of their lorry, but we're not going to say anything about that. BT helped us, Long Acres. We were given things from all sorts of different people that really every single thing went directly to our service users, our clients. Which was phenomenal. Really, we're so grateful for all of that. But it also built up those relationships, and we've sustained those as well, much to everyone's regret. So I know where they all are now. Also, people gave us time. So sometimes it was online, sometimes it was in person. So some of the admin support, we had the Countess of Wessex furloughed some of her team, and they came in and helped us with some of our social media and various other bits and pieces. The gardens, both here and in Fleet, needed a bit of TLC. It started to look like triffids growing everywhere. It really was something out of a horror film at one stage. And people came and helped. In their droves, really. I think people wanted to feel that they were contributing and supporting, and they did. We also had quite a lot of support from Sophie Wessex, who popped in a few times. And you can see here, we were making food and parcels to take out to our clients, and they weren't just our existing clients in the area, they were also previous clients who no longer attended DI, but we knew that they still need support. We collated a huge number of stats, the number of phone calls, the number of visits, the number of Skypes, the hours, the days, everything that we did, we were trying to capture all that information. It got to the point where I said to the team, don't lose track of what we're actually doing. Hands-on is far more important at the moment. We can go back and find that out, but don't lose sight of the work that we're actually doing. But the information we had is we've gained is quite mind-blowing and very useful as well. So as you can see, the Countess helped out quite a lot, doing various things. And the first lockdown and the second lockdown, actually, as they began to ease, more and more people came in back into the centre. We were doing less outreach. The outreach included administration of medication. It was there were a lot of things that we were doing, and we would flex. We would bring people in from different organisations if needs be, and so on. One of the pictures you can see, the middle one of the top line, and it was from my office one day, and it was so quiet, and what you could just about see above the Dial-A-Ride buses and the recycle bins is a rainbow. And I thought that was really symbolic of the hope, really, that we would get through this. You can also see top left, we had Aldershot Football Club coming in to do some training with our clients as well. That was really motivating for them. Our clients really gave them a run for their money. We also had a range of other things that was going on. I put loo rolls in there because we had quite a few, which is quite fortunate for us. Then also it was looking at what people gained, because I think a lot of information through this pandemic is anecdotal. It meant something different to all of us. And the way we coped was very different. If you were alone, it was sometimes very challenging. If you had families around you, that was very challenging. If you were a working parent, or if you were a retired parent, or if you were trying to care and you had people in your bubble and you're trying to work, there were so many different things that people experienced. And we asked some of the clients for this purpose tonight, and you can see for yourself. Jane had said, I think you said just thank you. Sometimes that's all you need, just a thank you. And no one expected any thank you or gratitude. We all just got on with it. And I think so where Sam says DI was her lifeline. Her father died. Her mother was very ill. Her husband contracted COVID, so she couldn't see him. He worked at the hospital for some time, and she was so despondent. We were able to refer her into the psychological services just across the road from us. There was somebody else whose the wheelchair was in such a pickle, and they couldn't get to wheelchair services, but we managed to get wheelchair services to us. So because we were a safe environment, so people were confident that they could come in, and that made a difference. Doing things differently, without fear. And also not being risk averse. We were safe, we knew we were COVID secure, we were tested every 2 days. But even so, people were frightened. We didn't know what to expect. So we did everything we could to keep people as safe as possible. And then one of the carers who was on her knees said if it hadn't, we were the wind beneath her wings, which I thought was lovely, not kind of Bette Midler-ish, but a nice way of, saying thank you. Also the team, because my expectations of them were pretty high, to say the least. And there was no complaint, not a moment did they miss a beat to do everything they needed to do. All of this, I did furlough the admin team, so it was all hands-on staff. There were 9 people doing this for 75 people plus their families every day. And if you look, some of the things they say, they're very proud. They've trusted us to take us through the pandemic, as well as our trustees, who, as I said at the outset, were brilliant at what they did. I think the middle quote there, it's been an incredible experience to be part of an organisation that's managed to adapt and evolve during a constantly changing pandemic. The whole world has been affected by the pandemic. And there are a huge number of people that have faced such challenging times. With all that's occurred over the past year, it's remarkable to fathom how DI has remained to be a beacon of light for the individuals that we support and their family members. And I think that just shows the glowing pride, really, of the team, as well as the clients saying how they felt. It is a huge thank you, as I said, to Surrey Heath Borough Council. I think it set the stage for what we were able to do and take things forward. We did get funding from the DCMS and the Community Foundation for Surrey. I'm also part of an Ipsos Mori group and the Tavistock Foundation now as an evaluation because of the way we worked through the pandemic. I think we worked collaboratively with everybody locally. I think we worked with councils. Matt Hancock was sick to death of my emails, I think, at the end of it. We didn't hang about. We told people what we were doing rather than wait to be told, because we knew our client group was so vulnerable that a month without support would have been hospitalisation or crisis. And as it was, you know, we were dealing with a lot of safeguarding issues, we were dealing with a lot of distress, but if we couldn't do something directly, we were able to bring people around. The thing that really did concern me was the lack of access to technology. We, several years ago, a very long time ago now, Surrey Heath gave us some money for a computer suite, which was fantastic. PCs, things have moved on, people use iPads and apps and so on and so forth now. One of the things we're hoping to develop is an app that we can put on people's phones and show them how to use it. So it's very straightforward, touch of a button. We're working with a company called Blink. The guy that's the managing director was a volunteer with us several years ago. He worked for Cisco originally, but he did some volunteering. He said he's going to work with us. We are going to have to pay for the app, but we think it could be really good, not just for our client group, for other people as well. And really straightforward, so it's not overcomplicated. I think exactly as you said, Viv, Chair, it's an absolute nightmare when you are on some sort of automated system or your Wi-Fi drops out and you have to start again. And I use it every single day and my language gets worse every single day. So frustrating. And I know people give up. They absolutely give up and they come in tears because they can't access something or their shopping hasn't been delivered. So we work with them and advocate support wherever we can. But I think an app, along with lessons and teaching and coaching and so on, may be something that could be really useful going forward. Whether we like it or not, this is the world we live in. But just as a complete aside, it was one of my grandson's birthday in lockdown, and I was chatting to him on Skype or FaceTime or whatever it was. I said, "Oh, so what did you get for your birthday?" He said, "Mum and Daddy bought me a Raspberry Pi." I said, "What?" "Was it nice?" He said, "It's not to eat, Grandma." I said, "What's a Raspberry Pi?" He said, "It's coding." I said, "Okay." Now he's 7. And apparently you put it in the back of the TV and you can create things, but it's teaching children how to code. And we've started to do that at DI now as well, teaching people. It's such a simple way to do it. I know some people in the room will know exactly what I'm saying. I'm still learning. But we're doing a lot more around that at DI, but in a fun way, so people aren't intimidated and overwhelmed by all of that. I think it's been, I've written this several times, it's been a paradoxical time. It's been the best of times and the worst of times. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I've had tears running down my face when I've known some of the things that have been going on where people are stuck in a room, a bedsit with nothing, or there's abuse going on and we can't quite reach what we do. We always get through there, we always manage to deal with it, but it's just finding solutions all the time. And the thing that we were able to do is work with so many other organisations, so many other people, and found a solution every single time. And I think that's something I'll take away from that. Never mind Tale of Two Cities, but it was the best of times and the worst of times. I think we've all been humbled by so many of the things that we've seen, but I also think we've been incredibly inspired. And we want to make a change, we want to do more. We know how vulnerable our residents are and the people are. And exactly as you were saying as well, Chair, that I was born in Windlesham Maternity Hospital a very long time ago, but it's quite scary. But actually looking now at the generation, my parents and grandparents, not now around anymore, but that ageing population who are highly vulnerable. Really vulnerable, but particularly our group, because their lives have been turned upside down in a heartbeat. Everything changes, absolutely everything. So thank you for your support. If you'd like to fund the app, that would be absolutely bloody marvellous. And when we're able to have more visitors, do come and see. We're working with Frimley Park Hospital a bit more around the discharge plans as well, to make sure that people don't drop off the edge. We know that local authorities are more or less bankrupt when it comes to social care, and we know health's in a terrible situation as well. We need to be able to support our community. We need to be able to support those most vulnerable, whether they're elderly, homeless or disabled in any way, shape or form, or just vulnerable. So thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm sure on behalf of the committee, we'd like to thank you for all of that work that you've done. It's been amazing to see you through this situation and everything that we will feel forward looking. Thank goodness. Thank you. And lastly, committee would like to ask any questions. Yes, Valerie.
It's more of a statement than a question, Chairman. I'm sorry. I'm ashamed to say I hadn't heard of Disability Initiative until 2016, when John Winterton was mayor and he chose you as one of his charities. And I had the honour to come along to quite a few of your fundraising events as deputy mayor at the time. I was impressed then, and tonight you haven't disappointed in any way, and I feel everybody here, age concern, decent, we all, or you all do your bit, but I have to say, I feel quite humbled to have listened to all of this tonight, and just keep on doing what you do, all of you. I just think you're absolutely amazing. And Sarah Jane Croke will find this year, is that the volunteers in our borough are amazing, and they don't get the credit they deserve. And I think tonight all of you should be really proud, and I'm humbled to be here with you, and just keep on doing what you're doing. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just kind of want to associate what Councillor White just said, and it's almost a thank you for that call to action, really. I think you kind of really demonstrated what an organisation can do in a time of crisis. And it is almost the times of crisis is when we really learn what we can do. So I think what you have done, and I think from what you said tonight, you've really kind of been able to operate with the confidence of a major organisation, and I think shows real leadership. So really well done to you as well. I did have one question. I'm just kind of wondering kind of what cross-organisation working you do with other charities in Surrey Heath, such as Parity for Disability. Just wondering, do you do a lot of kind of work between, as kind of like trying to pool resources? Is that something you do?
Yeah, we do. I know Alison really well because she's been around for a long time. Our client groups are slightly different. So, but Alison and I do quite a lot of work. We quite often share policies if needs be. And also we peer group support, because Parity wasn't able to work through the pandemic. And I know I rang Alison quite a few times just to make sure that she was okay, actually, because I was on a mission no matter what, and so was my team and the clients. But yes, we do work with any organisation really, and a bit like Valerie said, we're the best kept secret because people don't want to think about becoming disabled. We're there if you need us, but if you start thinking about disability, it's not we expect to get old. Children's charities and homelessness are very much in the spotlight. People becoming physically disabled tends not to get the attention or the support that one would like. But we do pack a punch. We're very lucky, as I said, with our trustees and our patron. I mean, she's very, very good. So yeah, any organisation, we're not exclusive at all. I think if we can help one another, and that's probably our greatest strength. We're not bureaucratic, we're very agile, and we're quick to respond and work with others. As I said, you know, in a way, it's a bit of exploitation. If the opportunity's there, we'll take it and share it. It is very much about sharing as well. We're not precious at all. We would never have achieved what we've achieved if we were a precious organisation. I can be difficult sometimes, but that's my job as a CEO. But ultimately, it's always for the greater good. It's always for the right reasons. You know, fundamentally believe that. Although I'm sure some people might say I've really annoyed them in the past, that it's always with the right intention. But yeah, so yes, we would work with any and do work with other organisations as well.
Christian?
Thank you. Yeah, I echo everything that's been said. And I think actually this is partly the reason why this is the best committee, because we get to meet all of you lovely people and hear about all the great people in Surrey East. So this is by far the best committee. It's a known secret amongst the councillors. But I just want to ask, I think a big key factor obviously is fantastic to hear about your staff and the fact that none of them called off a day sick, which, you know, shows the devotion that they gave. But I think the key part is about how you kept, you know, those that from going into hospital at a time when their beds need to be free. And I think the big question is as you kind of touched on at the end or alluded to, is going forward, making sure those beds are still free, especially as, you know, there's potential for a third wave or increased cases. And I wonder if you could just expound on how you're working with Freeman Buckers Hospital on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, you know, I can talk for England.
Yeah,
So
sure.
so
I love the area.
there are a couple of things that we were able to do with the hospital. It was moving people out and picking them up and making sure we were able to look at their functional mobility, what their home situation was like, what their support systems were like. One particular lady, she'd had a tracheostomy and she'd come out, she couldn't walk properly, she was very stressed and fatigued. One of our team is a psychologist and a yoga tutor, which is very fortunate. And we've got a lot of specialist equipment as well. So we worked with her for a period of 6 weeks, twice a week. It wasn't ongoing all the time. We had an end date. We just needed to enable her to reach her optimum so she didn't dip and end up back in hospital. So that was an example of one woman. There was a person, a lady that we support who has MS, and her husband lived together. They'd never been anywhere near social services. They actually fund themselves to come to DI. But she has rapid progressive MS and she's early 50s. And she was doing a lot of exercise, really maintaining her ability and her cognitive work as well. She's great. She's a real character. When lockdown came, she decided to take to her bed. And her husband phoned and he said she's getting lower and lower, she's spasming, don't know what to do, she won't eat. We weren't going into the house at that time, but we were taking around food. But he said, I can't get her to eat anything, I can't get her to exercise. We were talking to her on the phone. She said, no, just leave me alone. So one of the more senior key workers said, what about if you could come into the centre and we could work with you? Because she was feeling isolated, we could work with you and we can use the most meds and we can do some exercise and stretching with you and we can give you lunch before your husband comes and picks you up and takes you home again. She went, oh, bloody all right then. So anyway, he managed to bring her in and for two times a week, we were working with her and it was quite incredible to see the improvement straight away. She just, her spirits lifted, her motivation, she was eating, everything was going really well. About 6 weeks in, her husband decided that he could actually leave the house for an hour on Sunday because she would be safe and feel okay. So he went off on the Red Road on his motorbike that he'd rebuilt. Next morning, we got a call from St George's Hospital saying he'd come off his bike and was in a right state. She was at home alone. They didn't have any other contacts. What could we do? We managed to get the number of his brother who lived in Bournemouth and wife. They hadn't seen each other for about 3 or 4 years. Said, this is the situation. They said, right, we'll come and get her, but we haven't got any accessible house, or we don't know what to do. What do you do with someone with MS and who's a wheelchair user and, you know, who's obviously quite low? So we worked with them. They came up here from Bournemouth to collect her, and we went over and we discovered that they were hoarders, or the husband was hoarders. Very nice house, but they'd been both so depressed for so long. They hadn't taken the rubbish out for something like 3 months. It was awful. So the brother-in-law took her down to Bournemouth And we worked with him to find house cleaning and all sorts of things. We contacted our own occupational therapist who worked with them because the house was completely inaccessible. So he was moving her and all sorts of things. He was exhausted, got thoroughly depressed. They think that his motorbike accident was actually a suicide attempt at that stage. So we were able to work with St George's as well and said, look, we need a psychiatric team just to do an assessment with him. We worked with the brother. We then helped them find a place to rent while the builders went in and made their house accessible because it had all been cleared by then. And so she then returned back to DI 3 times a week, full on. He made a really good recovery, and his mental health and well-being is so much better now. And physically, he's recovered. It's taken 6 months, but it was a difficult situation. She's coming regularly. As I say, ROT is absolutely Lindsay's second to none. I mean, she's dealt with some really tricky situations over the last few months as well. So now the family are, the husband and wife are now back in their own home. She's regularly coming to us, and we've kept them her out of hospital and him out of hospital now as well. So that's an example, but there are quite a few like that.
Yeah. Wow, that's very impressive. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Members, any more comments or questions? Okay, I'd like to take us to the recommendation then, that the committee is asked to consider the presentation in relation to Surrey any future steps which members do wish to recommend to the executive and or council. Anything you have to? Can I read our presentations in terms of thank Gail and Greg and Tracy and Lucy from the bottom of my heart. And I think the rest of the committee will send that to all the wonderful work you do in Surrey. Thank you so much for coming. And welcome to the Bernardino Corporation.
Thank you.
If you'd like to contact, let me know.
Yes, absolutely. Send me an what we decided because I've got it. Yeah, that's fine.